This panel has lost all legitimacy and credibility. And it shows exactly what I warned back at the beginning of January, that Pelosi would play politics with this.
Drama on Capitol Hill tonight. Republicans take their ball and go home. So what's next for the January 6th committee in the House? Vladimir Putin has a brand new toy, a stealth fighter jet he calls Checkmate. What does President Biden do about Russia's continued saber rattling? And call it the Eerie Olympics. The games begin with empty stadiums. A US Olympian joins us to talk about that and his family's amazing journey from Cuba. The Donlon Report starts right now. Good evening. Great to have you with us. So much for that. Another effort to investigate the events of January 6th has run into a political roadblock, at least the effort to have a bipartisan investigation anyway. A proposed House committee looking into the Capitol riot fell apart today. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi rejected two of the GOP members proposed by Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy. And in response, McCarthy pulled all five members and said Republicans wouldn't take part unless all five were allowed to stay. McCarthy called it a sham process.
It's an egregious abuse of power. Pelosi has broken this institution.
It's a shame. The American people deserve better. They demand answers about January 6th.
They just want to be partisan. They just want to continue to attack the former president. They want to play their political games.
Unless Speaker Pelosi reverses course and seats all five Republicans, we will not participate. We will run our own investigation.
Well, let's get right to NewsNation's Michael Schur with more on this. Michael, you've covered Capitol Hill for a long time. Is this yet another new low?
Well, you know, I'd have to say so, Joe. Good evening to you as well. I think that if you look at what this is, it's the institution, right? And generally speaking, historically, the Congress does come together when protecting the institution of the Congress. They're not doing it here. You have to remember, too, Kevin McCarthy had a chance to have a 9/11 style commission where he had full subpoena power. The Republicans could have shared that, and he balked at that, so he didn't do it. The fact that Nancy Pelosi wants to maintain control over the way this is done is not surprising. And Pelosi, again, you heard the most interesting thing I thought today, Kevin McCarthy referring to her as the lame duck speaker. What that tells me is he's confident he is going to win the speakership because he's going to get a majority. The Democrats are playing their hand, and you saw it with President Biden's speech on voting rights. You're seeing it here, that the Republicans are not going to retreat from their brand right now. So what do? You try and get them to pay electorally, if you can, by sticking to your guns, and that's what Nancy Pelosi is doing here, Joe.
So, Michael, the overriding message today from just about everyone was we all agree that what happened was terrible and we need to investigate it. So the question is, why can't Congress figure out a way to do it?
Well, you know, that's the question. And I would say in this case, when you look at the history of this, the Republicans, as I said, did say they don't want to serve on that commission. They don't want to have a 9/11 style commission. So here they're saying that if you want to have your unilateral committee, we're going to give you the people we want. If you don't want some of them, you get none of them. And I think that the fact that they didn't want to work hand in hand in tandem with the speaker means that they're afraid of what kind of a selection process is going to happen in terms of getting witnesses. They're not going to have subpoena power. When they don't have subpoena power, they're just as happy to walk away, Joe.
So if you're keeping a political scorecard on this, Michael, both sides also seem to agree that Americans lose. Who wins then?
Yeah, it's hard to say. Look, I don't have optimism that this committee is going to get to the bottom of all they want, but you can see clearly that Nancy Pelosi didn't want Jim Jordan on Fox News, on some of the farther right cable networks every night owning the narrative here. So by saying we don't want Jim Jordan, we don't want Jim Banks, who's the head of the or a member of the Republican Study Committee, a very conservative sub-caucus of the Republican caucus, they're saying we don't want them to sort of own the post-game show, as it were. And right now, if nobody's going to own the pregame or the postgame, yeah, I'd have to agree with you. The Americans don't learn much, and they are, in the end, the losers, because we never really get to the bottom of what happened in January.
Michael Schur, good to see you. Thanks again.
Thanks.
We're joined now by Pat Brady, friend of the program, and also former member of the Republican National Committee and a former federal prosecutor as well. Pat, you and I talked earlier this week, and you thought there'd be some issues with some of the appointments on this committee, but did you see this coming?
No, from what I understand, too, Speaker McCarthy has the choice. So if Jim Jordan or those folks wanted to stay on, they can't overrule him. But you did see it coming. But listen to that intro. I'm like, what did the Speaker expect? Of course, the conservatives, the two of them, are going to want to be represented on that committee and voice their concerns. That's part of the process. So I think in the long term, when you ask the question, I think the Democrats end up losing because I think they're using this committee just to keep Trump at the forefront and all the bad things about Trump on January 6th. But the big losers here are the people, because we're never going to find out what happened.
Well, everyone kind of gets dinged in this thing, right?
Sure, that's part of the grow up. Right, we all get dinged. That's part of it.
It's interesting to me because Rodney Davis is considered one of the more bipartisan members in the House, certainly. Sure. Do you think he would have preferred to stay on this committee, or did he even have that option?
Of course he would, because he's one of the people that's head of the administration committee. Remember, the Congress is an independent entity that's responsible for itself. So they have an obligation, apart from everybody else, to figure out what happened and make sure it doesn't happen again around the security issues. But the Democrats, I guarantee you, they're going to make this a referendum on Donald Trump and what he did prior to the riots, or to quote unquote
leading up to it.
But I mean, that's part of the equation, but maybe it's 10% of it. The rest of it is, what was the intel failure? How'd they do this? Why did people get hurt? I mean, this is the nation's capital. You had people breaking in like it was, breaking into a drugstore.
Right. So what happens from here now? Do the Democrats continue with this in the House, and then the Republicans do their own as well?
We'll see. I think if the Republicans do their own, they're not going to have much power. They're not going to have subpoena power,
right,
which just drives these investigations. Remember, they create these committees and the rules. So I guess the Democrats are going to go Tuesday or whenever they're their first hearing, or Monday, with 7 Democrats and Liz Cheney and talk about it. But then it's a partisan investigation.
Does this carry over to 22, do you think? What's the political calculus here? Because Senate Republicans blocked that true 9/11 style commission, and now you have this. Does this carry over?
Yeah, kind of shame on them for doing that, because I think a lot of us Americans wanted that kind of commission, because this last time people were in the Capitol like that was the War of 1812. I think we're entitled to know what happened, but we are where we are. But I still have always said all along, with the barrage on Trump, these investigations constantly, politically, they're losers in the long run for the Democrats.
All right, let's move on. Talk about Dr. Fauci and Rand Paul. The latest showdown yesterday you saw. Rand Paul now says he's going to call on the DOJ to investigate Dr. Fauci, basically claiming he lied to Congress. Here's part of a clip from last night.
Sending a letter to the Department of Justice asking for a criminal referral because he has lied to Congress. We have scientists that will line up by the dozens to say that the research he was funding was gain of function. He's doing this because he has a self-interest to cover his tracks and to cover his connection to Wuhan lab.
So this does get into the weeds a little bit, Pat, with gain of function and how a virus is altered in the end. But Paul contends that NIH funded this with the Wuhan lab and that Fauci lied about it. Is this investigation going anywhere?
No. And honestly, the referral as a criminal referral, criminal perjury, is idiotic. And he should stick to being a doctor, meaning Rand Paul, because it's going nowhere. It's political gamesmanship. There is some wiggle room on either side. And I don't... There are some issues that everybody takes everything Dr. Fauci says as gospel. And there's wiggle room on this issue that Senator Paul is talking about, but to make a referral to the Justice Department on something like this, it's just idiotic, and it's going to be something you can raise money off of.
All right, one more thing before we let you go here, and that is the situation that happened yesterday as well, with the arrest of former President Trump's former advisor, Tom Barrack, charged with illegal foreign lobbying. What do you make of this?
Yeah, basically what they charged him with is not registering. If you represent a foreign entity and you're lobbying them in the United States, you need to disclose to the Attorney General you're doing that. But this guy was real close with former President Trump from 2016 and probably into the 2018, 2019. It was actually acting on behalf of the UAE, United Arab Emirates, in counseling the campaign and getting to the high-level campaign people and not disclosing that. And if you read through the indictment, it's pretty much he was acting as an agent for the UAE and not disclosing that and actually having an impact on the campaign. That in no way implicates former President Trump, but this is what this guy was up to. And borderline espionage. It's pretty bad conduct.
How serious is it? What are the charges we're looking at, and what is the possible time?
I don't know. I'm not exactly sure what the sentencing guideline is, because a lot of times it's based on different factors. But if you read through the indictment, the conduct's pretty bad. Not just not registering, but the attempts he made to influence and actually effectively influenced policy of the campaign, and even when they were in the White House. It's a bad indictment. Again, it's not implicating anybody in the White House, but these kind of people hang around these inaugural committees because they're trying to sell access. And one way to get in to these folks outside the campaign finance rules, donate to the inaugural committee, and that's what he was running.
All right, another one will follow. Pat Brady, good to see you. Thanks for coming by. Former federal prosecutor and also former member of the Republican National Committee.
Thanks, Joe.
Good to see you. Also, in Tokyo, the opening ceremony is until Friday. The games have begun, though, and for the first time, Olympians take a knee at the games. What do they protest? I'll speak with an Olympian who is heading to Tokyo. And Vladimir Putin has a new toy, more specifically, a new fighter jet he dubbed Checkmate. Does he have the U.S. in his sights? And don't forget to follow us on social media at the Donlon.
The United States military is an apolitical institution. We were then, we are now. And our oath is to the Constitution, not to any individual at all. And the military did not and will not and should not ever get involved in domestic politics. We don't arbitrate elections. That's the job of the judiciary and the legislature.
That was Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Mark Milley, responding to questions about a new book written by Wall Street Journal's Michael Bender. It's called, Frankly, We Did Win This Election, the inside story of how Trump lost. In particular, the book outlines the moment things got tense between General Milley and the former president when Milley apologized for appearing in a photo with Mr. Trump at St. John's Church. The former president reportedly said it showed weakness by apologizing. Milley replying his apology had to do with me and the uniform and the apolitical tradition of the United States military. Joining me now is Hal Kempfer, retired lieutenant colonel in the Marines. Hal, we were all sort of waiting and looking forward to this news conference today. I'm sure he knew he was going to get these questions. Why not answer them directly?
Well, Joe, it's one of those things where it's a political hot potato. He had to answer the questions, but he was absolutely correct. The military is an apolitical institution. When we take our oath of office, it's to the Constitution. It's not to any political party. It's not to any movement or something like that. And it's something that we guard very carefully. I spent years working in this area of civil-military relations. I worked side by side with DEA, FBI, a variety of other organizations, local, state law enforcement, public safety, worked on things like drug cartels, terrorism, and natural disasters. And I can tell you, it's a very careful line that we toe to make sure we're there in support, but it's defense support of civil authorities. And at no time do we want to appear to have a political bias or to be basically taking charge or usurping other authorities.
Well, there's certainly that appearance in these books anyway. By not answering it, Hal, isn't he essentially admitting it? I mean, if he didn't say these things, wouldn't he want to make that clear?
Well, I think he's trying to avoid saying it. I can tell you right now that sometimes when you're talking about civil-military relations and conversations with political leaders, it can get very direct. Let's just say this, the military is better trained and better experienced in this than a lot of our elected officials, and they have to be able to speak very frankly, and the chairman of the Joint Chiefs is supposed to speak very frankly to the president with respect.
Right. Well, that's what I was going to say. Is it unusual for him to have said the things that he did say, or does it just the fact that it involved the former president that made it so controversial?
Well, I'm sure there was a little bit of both. I don't know. I mean, I see what's alleged, what's said in the book. I would not dispute that there could have been a very frank, candid conversation. And I will tell you that whereas I haven't been in those conversations, let's just say I may have been outside the door when conversations like that happen, and voices do get raised, and and things get clarified real quick, you know. But here's the bottom line: is the chairman of the Joint Chiefs has to tell the president at times, sir, that is not a lawful order. We cannot do that. That is against the rules. That's against the law. We simply can't do it. And there are times that comes up, and it's not President Trump wouldn't be the first president who heard a chairman explain that to him.
And that's not political, Hal. That's why I'm wondering why he wouldn't have at least said what you just did.
I think, well, you know, first off, I'm a Marine, so obviously I'm going to say it better than anybody in the Army. But beyond that, let's just put it this way. I think the political pressure back in Washington, D.C. is such that he probably has a tough time explaining anything without it taking a political tilt one way or the other. And that's just the way he's trying to, you know, he's basically trying to avoid going one way or the other. Maybe he could have said it better. I think it'd be better if he was a little bit more candid, but that's my own opinion.
Well, we all had the popcorn out. We ate it anyway, even though we didn't quite get the news conference we were expecting. Hal Kempfer, it's always good to have your insight. Retired Lieutenant Colonel in the Marines. Semper Fi, my friend.
Hoorah. Thanks, Joe.
Right. Now to something the Pentagon should be focused on, certainly if they're not already. A new fighter jet Russian President Vladimir Putin and the country's military have named Checkmate. That's the name of that new Russian stealth fighter unveiled as a prototype at an air show outside Moscow. Putin as he toured the aircraft, saying it shows the potential for Russian military aviation. Critics, in turn, calling it more saber-rattling. Leland Vittert, the host of On Balance, here on NewsNation right after our broadcast, joins us now. So you were just in Geneva not too long ago. It's interesting that we're hearing and seeing all of these things. Do you think they were discussed at the time, or is this coming out just now?
Well, the coincidence of announcing all of this after the summit probably is not a coincidence, right? The timing here is well planned. What's interesting is that for the first time now, America is realizing that in 30 years, its military superiority, and that in terms of weapons systems, is being challenged. And you think about what they've unveiled. Not only is it Checkmate, this stealth fighter jet that they have, it's an S-500 missile system that they debuted, and also a hypersonic missile. Hypersonic missiles are specifically designed to defeat the missile defense systems that the United States had. The S-500 specifically designed to detect America's stealth fighters and stealth bombers. So this is not about new military weapons systems for Russia to use in its adventures, say, around the world, which they haven't been very successful at. This is directly aimed at the United States and saying that for 30 years, the United States has just sort of enjoyed this beautiful period where the U.S. military could act with impunity around the world. That is starting to be eroded.
Right. And as we get to the end of this 30-year stretch, at least, it sure seems like Russia and China as well have been very busy playing catch up.
They have been, and they're spending money catching up significantly. And this is what we think about China. They're building a blue water navy, meaning the ability to project force with their navy past a couple of 100 miles from their shores. They're building aircraft carriers. They've taken over the South China Sea with the islands that we've talked about. What was really stunning, though, is the segment that you just had talking about General Milley and Secretary Austin, who had their press conference today. In that press conference, there was not a single question from the Pentagon press corps about either the Russians or the Chinese.
Even in light of the threat, the warning that was tweeted by Russia, was it last night or the night before?
Nothing.
All right, what do we have, America, in response to all of this?
Well, hopefully we don't know everything that America has, right? Because we didn't know about most of America's best weapon systems for a pretty long time. But the one thing that you'd have to think about is the B-21 bomber. That's the next generation of the B-2 bomber. And there have been some renderings that have put out, the B-21 Raider. There have not been any pictures taken of it that have been confirmed. The one thing that you think about in this is that the B-2 and some of the other stealth fighters, back in the day, people talked about those as possibly being UFOs. When people sighted them, they were a flying wing that no one had ever seen. So you kind of wonder now whether the UFOs we've been talking about over the past couple of months, maybe there are some new U.S. weapon systems. In light of what the Russians and the Chinese are doing, you'd hope so.
Right. All right. Well, more on this tonight on the show?
Yeah, for sure. We're going to have a congressman coming on who is part of the Foreign Affairs Committee, former Army Ranger, former Special Forces doctor, in talking about this, but also talking about this issue on Balance tonight right after this. So we're on in about 39 minutes, talking about, wait a second here, is the Pentagon really focusing on the right issues? If what's being asked of Chairman Milley is this stuff about January 6th and then also about critical race theory that came up in these conversations, is their eye really on the ball? And if not, where should it be?
We'll see you at the top of the hour.
Thank you.
Thanks, Leland. Check out this video. Talk about a 5-finger discount, or in this case, they walked in, they grabbed what they wanted, and then they left. 2 men caught on camera shoplifting in Los Angeles, goods in hand, duffel bag in tow, and walking out of the store. Happened at a TJ Maxx in Granada Hills, California. LAPD is investigating the incident, but according to reports, no one's been charged. Critics blame the incident on California law, which in 2014 lowered criminal sentences on crimes, including shoplifting. In response to a rising number of incidents like this, California Governor Gavin Newsom signing a bill today aimed at reducing store theft, including by organized gangs.
We've all seen the images of people rushing in. You're seeing them all across the state of California, those organized efforts, and they are organized disproportionate efforts, and we want to go after those rings.
Crime also a big issue in Chicago, of course, where citizens are about to have a lot more say in how police do their jobs. NewsNation's Tamon Bradley joins us live tonight from Chicago City Hall with details. Tamon, this has been a plan that's been in the works for a long time, and it's been controversial.
Joe, it's a new era for police community relations in the city of Chicago. Nobody thought this was possible. Advocates have pushed for this for decades. Finally, there will be civilian oversight of the Chicago Police Department. It is an issue that activists talked about in the 70s, in the 60s. There were communities that said police were roughing up innocent people. Police had torture centers going back decades. And then there was a flashpoint in 2016 following the release of the video showing the murder of Laquan McDonald. Activists took to the streets saying that they wanted a greater say in the Chicago Police Department, its policies, who the superintendent of the police department is. Now, what this is today that the City Council approved is an ordinance that will create a 7-member commission of civilian oversight. The mayor will appoint the commissioners. It also establishes district councils that will be in all 22 police districts across the city of Chicago. Those are elected positions, but it's more of an advisory post. They'll work with the commissioners who will work with city council and the police department to establish policy for the Chicago police. The mayor celebrated this as a huge step forward on the road to police reform in the city of Chicago, and she talked about all of this after the city council vote. Take a listen.
There can be no legitimacy if the people of the city do not trust the police. And the police will never be effective in fulfilling their sacred oath to protect and serve if they are not trusted by the community and viewed with suspicion. Today, I'm beyond proud to be able to deliver on that campaign promise.
Tamal, what are you hearing from critics on this, and what are you hearing from police as well? What does the union say?
Well, critics say that this is just another bureaucracy and that, in fact, there are only so much that this commission can, in fact, do. They recommend policy, but the city council can override them. The mayor can override them. For example, activists wanted the ability to be able to hire and fire the police superintendent. Instead, they can just advise on that. As for the Fraternal Order of Police here in Chicago, they were strongly opposed to this.
There's already another commission in Chicago, Taman, the Civilian Oversight of Police Accountability. What happens to that?
So this commission will, in fact, have oversight of that commission as well as the police board. The idea is that you will have civilian oversight looking at all of the various people responsible for policing in the city. But it is difficult to become a commissioner. Under the ordinance, you have to have at least 10 years of experience as a lawyer or working as a community organizer. So it's not really for ordinary people. Ordinary people can sort of be involved in these local district councils, which are elected positions.
NewsNation's Taman Bradley live for us in Chicago tonight. Thanks, Taman. In Tokyo, Olympians take a knee for the first time ever. What are they protesting? We'll have that. Plus, have you heard of kata? It's similar to karate. I'll speak with Team USA Olympian Ariel Torres ahead of his trip to Tokyo. Quick update for you now on a low-speed car chase of a stolen utility van in Pasadena. We were showing you this at the end of rush hour. The suspect, we can tell you, has now been detained. The chase came to an end when the driver collided with roadside signs on the eastbound 210 freeway and came to a rest against a divider. After more than a year of anticipation, the Olympic Games kicked off today with women's soccer. The U.S. went head-to-head with Sweden, and Sweden dominated. The final score after 90 minutes of play, 3-0. The team's superstar, Megan Rapinoe, may have put it best, saying, "We got bopped." You can see the picture there. Several of the teams, in fact, took a knee today in a message of unity against racism. Joining me now, an athlete who will be headed to Tokyo soon himself, Team USA karate member Ariel Torres. Let's start with that, because this is the first time, Ariel, we've seen athletes take a knee at the Olympics. What do you think of these demonstrations we're already seeing?
Well, you know, racism is a huge thing. So taking a knee against it, I understand it. And, you know, it is what it is. I agree with it. Yeah.
Okay. Do you have anything planned for the games when you get there to make a statement, or no?
When I go to the games, my primary focus is to focus on competing. You know, I'm going in there as an athlete focused on my mission for the past 5 years. Given everything that I've been working through, you know, I'm an athlete. I came from Cuba, doing the best I could do to become at the level I am now, fight for my dream. You know, my parents, we came from Cuba at a very young age. just so that we can come for a better life. You know, there are many things that we have to overcome in order for me to fight for my dream. And I'm very proud to be a Cuban American, being the first Cuban American to represent kata for karate in the Olympics. So I'm very proud of being Cuban. I'm very proud of representing the United States of America. So I'm going to do the best I can to represent us to the best possible way.
Let me ask you about Cuba, since you brought it up. You were born there, so I'm sure you and your family are watching what's happening in Cuba right now very closely. What do you think of what's happening there right now?
Well, what's happening in Cuba, basically, overall, you know, the Cuban people are suffering. My family's still in Cuba, so it hurts me a lot to see what's happening. Like I said, my family's still there. I still have my aunt there, my uncle there, my grandma. So, you know, they're going through a lot. There's not much I can do as an athlete. My grandma just, you know, told me, I spoke to her a while back. She said, listen, Ariel, just focus on you. Make us proud. Do your thing. You know, there's nothing I can do as an athlete, and it hurts. You know, so all I can do is my best at the Olympics and try to show the world, you know, try to inspire the Cubans around everywhere in the world that if we were just given that freedom that we all humans of us deserve, you know, this freedom that anything is possible for us to achieve our dream.
What would you like to see happen there?
Where? In the Olympics?
In Cuba, I'm sorry.
Oh, I would definitely love for Cuba to be free. You know, that's what my family left Cuba for, so that we can have a better life, so we can be free from everything, and so that we can fight for our dream, because they weren't able to in Cuba. So that's why they left this country.
All right, so when do you leave for Tokyo?
I leave on July 25th to Tokyo.
Okay, and tell us about kata. This is a new sport for the Olympics this year, right?
Yes, sir. So kata basically is a predetermined pattern of self-defense. So back in the day, the old masters developed these patterns in order to simulate a fight that they're defending against and attacking and defending against multiple opponents at the same time. So when we do kata, we basically focus on the defending, attacking, avoiding, destroying, all these different things in order to defend ourselves, you know, and it became eventually an art of perfection, trying to perfect and move stronger, how to go faster, how to be more stable, how to impress people, how to make people really get captivated by the image you're portraying, the story you're showing.
And not challenge you, that's for sure. If you break out some of these kata moves,
that's fine, no problem.
That's right.
The biggest thing about karate is avoiding any conflict, any problem.
That's right.
You know, diffusing any situation so that you don't ever have to be in a fight.
Has anyone ever made that mistake and taken you on?
No. You know, there's always been, you know, problems where like people insult or whatever, and you just blow it off. There's no need to get, you know, flustered or anything. It's just like, hey, you know, it is what it is. You're entitled to your opinion. Yeah. I'm going to keep living my life the best way I can.
Hey, what are you expecting on the way in, Ariel? Have they told you anything about travel, about isolation? What are you looking forward to the most as you go?
The experience overall. You know, right now everything is very new. Things are constantly changing. Fortunately, I trust what the Tokyo Olympic government has been doing for all of the athletes to be safe. You know, many things have been happening. At the end of the day, I trust what they're doing. I believe that I go in there, I just have to, you know, maintain my distance from people, keep my mask on, which I have been doing all along. I'm fairly safe. I never got COVID or anything. Going to the Olympics, not having audience either, because we were told. So I was asked that a few times. It's not a problem at all. I competed already without an audience this year, several times actually. So it's not really a big deal to me. It's not going to affect me. At the end of the day, it's my performance to do what I love. And thankfully, my family will be able to see me live on TV. So that's good.
I saw where you played the trumpet. Are you taking that with you?
Yeah, I played a trumpet in high school. No, I will not be taking that with me. I don't need it. Probably some video games, because we will be isolated for a while.
Yeah.
We'll be basically in our rooms most of the time.
Sure.
So the United States Olympic Karate Federation made it so that we were able to leave our room for 8 hours at least a day to go to a high performance area. In this high performance area, we train and we socialize with our teammates, and then we go back and then back to, like, you know, isolation basically, our own room.
Well, we will be watching and we'll be cheering for you. That's Team USA's karate member, Ariel Torres. It's so great to have you with us. Thanks, Ariel. Good luck.
Thank you so much. Have a good day.
This week, Ben & Jerry's Ice Cream has chosen to stop selling ice cream in the Israeli-occupied West Bank and East Jerusalem. Israel calling it a boycott, with Prime Minister Naftali Bennett saying Ben & Jerry's has decided to brand itself as the anti-Israel ice cream. We will fight the boycott with full force. Meanwhile, the Palestine Solidarity Campaign is celebrating the boycott, saying this is huge and a message to all complicit companies. The tide of history is turning. #BDS. For his take on the topic, I want to welcome in the host of nationally syndicated Eat, Drink, Smoke. It's a radio show and podcast. That's Tony Katz, who's with us. Based on your Twitter feed, Tony, you're not going to be buying Ben & Jerry's anytime soon. Why are you so fired up about this?
Well, first, friends don't let friends eat Ben & Jerry's. But if you go back to the graphic you just had up, you'll see the hashtag at the end of that message, which says BDS.
Right.
The admission that this is boycott, divestment, and sanction. Boycotting Israeli products, divesting from investment in Israel, there it is right there, and sanctioning Israel. This is what Ben & Jerry's and their parent company, Unilever, decided to do. This isn't about human rights. This isn't about social justice. This is about Jew hate. This is about hating the people of Israel, hating Jews, and buying into one of the most despicable pieces of propaganda that has infiltrated the country on college campuses and elsewhere. We have states, and you've heard Naftali Bennett, the prime minister, saying he's reaching out to these states that have passed laws saying we don't support BDS and saying, what are you going to do about this? I think there are states that have to take a long look at what it is Unilever is doing, what it is Ben & Jerry's has done here regarding BDS, and say, all right, well, then we're done with you. And
well, they
certainly,
don't care, though,
I got a lot of
Tony.
other choices.
They don't care. I mean, obviously, they think this move isn't going to hurt business, or if they do, they don't care. Again, if critics don't like it, don't buy the ice cream. They're not worried about it.
Let's go with the argument that you're right, that they don't care, that Ben & Jerry don't care. As long as they're thought of as good woke folk, that's all that matters. We still have a job to do. There is still a market that has Ben & Jerry's out there, and you need to know the bigots they are. They don't believe in Israel's existence. If you take a look at their statement, they talk about occupied Palestine. They don't talk about policy. They don't talk about settlements. They don't talk about elections.
They take a
talk
side.
about Israel not being allowed to exist.
Well,
so
and companies take
at least
sides
say to
all the
yourself,
time, right?
What?
Companies take sides all the time. That's what we talk about.
Michael Jordan said it best. Republicans buy sneakers too. Are you sure this is the thing you want to take a side on? But if they're going to make this decision, we can make a decision. And our decision is Haagen-Dazs. It's freaking delicious.
And that's what Ben & Jerry's is saying. Help yourself. Hey, Tony, let's shift from ice cream to something that I know is near and dear to your heart, mine too, a little booze. Reports from around the country, including North Carolina and Vermont, have the state suffering from a pandemic-related liquor shortage. Tell us about this.
So this is happening in a lot of different places, and it has to do with the amount of alcohol that was purchased during COVID. The changes of laws that took place, we saw spirit sales go up. Tequila was a big one because it didn't have any tariff issues that went along with it, and you saw a lot of super premium tequilas get into the market. Speaking of Michael Jordan, his Cincoro tequila that he does with Jeannie Buss and a group of other NBA owners. The issue here is that the demand is so great that the supply, instead of when someone orders a case, they're getting a bottle, or they're getting 2 bottles. Now that creates a whole secondary market, which I don't think is legal, and I'm not recommending you do anything like that.
Okay.
But that's why you see things like Pappy Van Winkle going for thousands of dollars a bottle. The distilleries are trying to ramp up, but this is something that you don't make bourbon in a day. It spends years in the barrel.
Right.
You don't just do these things. The guys at Whistle Pig in Vermont, they can't control the fact that there's a shortage. They're going to keep making rye whiskey the very best that they can, but you can't do anything about the supply. It doesn't happen overnight. These things take time. So even if they ramp up now, they still have at least 2 to 4 years before they're going to put anything out there.
I'll stick with the 12-year Macallan. I guess that'll work for me.
Oh, a Scotchman.
Yeah.
Okay, listen, no judgments. It's not the American drink, but sure, you drink that.
Only on special occasions, though. That's Eat, Drink, and Smoke radio show and podcast host Tony Katz. Good to see you, Tony. Thank you.
Always, man.
Have you tried to get a ride share lately? You probably noticed prices are soaring, but is that extra money going to the drivers? And as housing prices skyrocket, many are getting pushed out of the market. Why another trend is likely to make home buying even harder. It's not a driver shortage, it's a driver strike. That's the call for today's nationwide strike of Uber and Lyft drivers. Described as hundreds taking part, striking drivers are calling for higher wages and complaining the app companies have reduced mileage rates, lowered commissions, and offer less flexibility. Not sure whether he took an Uber to get here, but Mitch Rochelle, founder of Macro Trends Advisors, joins us tonight. You've seen him on Zoom. Tonight, he's in Chicago. We get him in person.
Live in flesh.
We asked him to stop by. So the gig economy, we're supposed to have, I guess, more flexible schedules. They were supposed to call their own shots, and now they're going on strike. What's going on here?
Well, you know, what's interesting is I was in L.A. 2 weeks ago. I took a $45 Uber ride from the airport to downtown. That's what it should be. It was $195.
Oh.
I agreed to surge pricing. I didn't have a choice. I'm at LAX. I have to get downtown. When I spoke to the driver, I said, how much of that uplift do you get? And he goes, not as much as you would think.
Wow.
So that's part of what's going on right now. The other thing is the price of gasoline has gone up for all of these drivers.
Right.
And that's not necessarily something that the drivers are seeing the benefit of. So labor is doing what labor does. They react.
Well, what is happening with the labor market right now? Because we hear all of these openings, and you think this is having a downstream effect as well.
Yeah, well, look, there are 9 million unfilled jobs in this country, and the number of unemployed is roughly 7 million. So that's a disconnect that I still can't wrap my brain around. Some of it are some incentives that are out there that are going to evaporate. But the reality is, I think we have a gap. I think the nature of work has changed since people left the office. You talked about the studio. The last time I was in a studio was March of 2020. Things have changed. Look how we were able to do these jobs remotely. And I don't think the workforce has fully adapted. So there's an opportunity to retrain our workforce that needs to happen. People are looking for government to do that because government has done so much. I think the reality falls on the private sector.
A lot of people are automating.
Right. Well, everything's automating, and the problem is the nature of the work necessarily hasn't. So we have a chip shortage in this country. Do we have enough people trained to make chips?
All right, let's talk about housing. First-time home buyers having a tough time buying into this market because we know the prices are skyrocketing. In fact, the number of starter homes for sale sits at a 5-decade low right now, Mitch, and that's squeezing a lot of buyers out. And then, well, prices. According to Realtor.com, the median listing price for a home is up nearly 13% from a year ago. But check out these markets. Austin, Texas, up 34%. Tampa, Florida, up 20%. Las Vegas, up 19%. And take a look at this in Austin. It's a beauty. Lots of natural light, contemporary design. We're going to put you on the spot here, guys, the viewers and Mitch. Modern kitchen, has a pool. 4 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, 2,200 square feet. What do you think this sold for on June 16th, according to Redfin?
I'm going to say $550,000.
$550,000?
$550,000. No, you're kidding me. I'm looking at the teleprompter.
$1.9 million. That was above the asking price in May. And check this out for context here. The home back in 2009 sold for $390,000. 2009, as you pointed out, was at the end of the recession there. What are we to make of this, Mitch? I mean, where's this going, and what are people supposed to do, especially first-time home buyers?
Well, here's the only good news in what I'm about to tell you, which is interest rates are low, right? So that's a good news. The problem is we have such a tremendous supply and demand imbalance, and people still want to buy homes. The savings rate has skyrocketed. There's maybe $2 trillion of excess savings. You look, I think I talked with you about this last time I was on. You look at the last 2 stimulus packages, the bulk of that was saved. Right. So people have all the savings and they want to buy homes. We just can't make them fast enough.
Advice for those folks who are heading out there now to not overreach, because a lot of them are having to get the final sale because they're getting outbid.
Yeah, don't overreach. And my best advice is maybe you go a little further away from where you wanted to live, maybe a mile or 2 further, maybe 20, 30% less money.
The other thing I wonder about is if it is a seller's market and people say, I'm going to sell now and make money while I can, what do you do after that?
Well, they have no place to go. That's why
we're buying into this market.
We're in this vicious cycle because people aren't selling, because if they sell, they could be out of luck not knowing where they're going to go.
Right. All right, Mitch Rochelle, it's great to see you and great to have you in person.
Good to be here.
Also, the buck stops here. How the small market Milwaukee Bucks stopped the NBA's super team trend. That's ahead. Became NBA champions for the first time in 50 years. Don't forget, you can follow us on social media at the Donlon Report on Twitter.